This is a lesson that introduces lots of different places of work in French to follow on from all the many jobs that you've been learning recently. So by the end of the lesson, we would like you to be able to say where somebody works and also to be able to say where you would like to work in the future. Okay, there's going to be a lot of repetition coming up, but I'll just explain the format of the slide so that you understand how they are laid out. So if you want to say I work in French, you say je travaille. That's je travaille with a silent E verb ending. For he works, it's il travaille. Again, you have a silent E verb ending. For she works, it's elle travaille with exactly the same verb ending. It's worth reminding here that the verb ending for il and elle, no matter what the verb is always the same. I'd also like to point out that it's super special and you might get some extra credit if you are able to talk about a third person, if you're able to talk about he or she in your French writing or speaking. And then at the top of each slide, we're going to learn the places of work, and I'm going to ask you to repeat after me. Je travaille dans un bureau. Je travaille dans une entreprise. On the first run through, I'm not going to tell you what the English is. I'd like you to look at the pictures that we've put up on the PowerPoint and see if you can work them out for yourself. Je travaille dans un supermarché. Il travaille dans un magasin. Elle travaille dans une usine. Je travaille dans une école. Il travaille dans un hôpital. Elle travaille dans un restaurant. Je travaille dans un salon. Il travaille sur un chantier. I wonder if I asked you, having run through that just once, Year 7, which of those was the odd one out? Which answer would you come up with? I'm not going to tell you the answer yet. We're going to go through them again, and at the end of the second run through, I'll tell you what the answer was. Okay, so for the second run through, I'm going to give you some hints along the way and make sure you know what all the English is. Dans un bureau is in an office. Dans une entreprise is in a company. You might remember that entreprise means a company because it looks like enterprise. Dans un supermarché is of course in a supermarket. That's a word that we call a cognate when the French and the English is very similar if not the same. Dans un magasin has got nothing to do with magazines unless the shop, that's what it means, Year 7, sells magazines. And magasin is the word for any kind of shop. And the one you have here in the picture, Fnac, is quite a well-known French store that sells music and items a little bit like our HMV. Dans une usine, the picture makes it pretty obvious that this is in a factory, and a little memory technique for you here that I quite like using with my classes is in a factory, dans une usine, which oozes lots of chemicals, or where they use lots of chemicals. Dans une école is in a school. The picture makes it clear, and I think école is a word that's cropped up over the year so far anyway. Dans un hôpital, another cognate, very much like hospital. Dans un restaurant, in a restaurant. I'm going to underline that word, red for danger, for two reasons. Firstly, it's quite difficult to pronounce a word when it's identical to the English. So in English, restaurant. In French, un restaurant. So the good news is the French spelling is exactly the same as the English. The bad news is this is quite a tricky one with all those vowels. And here it is. abbreviated. You might have realised already that the French quite like to abbreviate words where possible. So the abbreviation for un restaurant is un resto. Okay, un salon is a salon. Perfect cognate. And this last one. This was the one that I was kind of hoping you might have got as the odd one out. Sur un chantier is on a building site. And the reason why I was hoping you might realise it was the odd one out is this is on a building site, sur un chantier. All the other places of work that I'm teaching you start with the little word dans, meaning in a salon, in a school, etc. So there's another little word for you to be learning. It's a lovely arrow there. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is ask you to pause the PowerPoint every time one of the pictures spin so that you can be chanting out the places of work that you've been learning at home. And I'd like you to do it in a full sentence. So for example, the first one would be, and I'd ask you to pause the PowerPoint and come out with a full sentence. For example, je travaille dans un magasin, or il travaille dans un magasin, or elle travaille dans un magasin. And what I'd ask you to do is use a different sentence starter each time. So I'm going to let them spin. So make sure you pause the PowerPoint to give yourself enough time to say full sentences. Okay, so now moving on to some translation. Translation forms a part of all the current day assessments, whether it is English into French on a writing paper or French into English on a reading paper. The translations I'm going to give you now are, I think you'd probably agree, the most difficult way around. They're English into French. So here are your translation questions 1 to 5. I would ask you to pause the PowerPoint and write down your full sentence translations in French based on what you've been repeating and maybe note-taking so far in the lesson before I reveal your answers. Here are your answers. I work in a factory. Je travaille dans une usine. She works in a hairdresser's. Elle travaille dans un salon. He works on a building site. Il travaille sur un chantier. I work in a supermarket is a pretty straightforward one. Je travaille dans un supermarché. And finally, she works in a shop. Elle travaille dans un magasin. We're going to go through all of those places of work again, but this time we're not saying I work, he works, she works. We're going to learn or revise a sneaky way of speaking in a kind of a future tense, and that is I would like to work, which is je voudrais travailler. So this phrase here is very, very handy. Smiley face. Really handy year 7 because it's quite a straightforward way of getting in what we call a conditional future. But one of the easiest ways of speaking in a little bit of a future tense. So repeat the full sentences after me as we whiz through and we'll revise the places of work at the same time. Je voudrais travailler dans un bureau. Je voudrais travailler dans une entreprise. Je voudrais travailler dans un supermarché. Je voudrais travailler dans un magasin. Je voudrais travailler dans une usine. Je voudrais travailler dans une école. Je voudrais travailler dans un hôpital. Je voudrais travailler dans un restaurant. Je voudrais travailler dans un salon. Last one. Je voudrais travailler sur un chantier. Okay, hope you repeated out loud at home. And now we're going to go through them again. However, if we're in the classroom at this point, I would be asking you to say the je voudrais travailler sentence and I would repeat after you. This would allow you to check whether you are learning your places of work and also check if you are speaking in a decent sort of future tense sentence, and you'd also be able to check your pronunciation. So I'd like to do the very same thing. So can you please try and call out at home the sentence for I would like to work in an office? So I'll give you a few moments. And then my turn. Je voudrais travailler dans un bureau. Or je voudrais travailler dans une entreprise. Okay, so that's what I'd like to do for the rest of the slides. Your turn. And check your pronunciation. Je voudrais travailler dans un supermarché. Over to you. Je voudrais travailler dans un magasin. Next one, with no help this time. Je voudrais travailler dans une usine. Your turn. Je voudrais travailler dans une école. And this one. Je voudrais travailler dans un hôpital. Next. Je voudrais travailler dans un restaurant. And this one. Je voudrais travailler dans un salon. Last one. Did you remember it was our little odd one out? Think about the little word. Let's see how perfect you got it. Je voudrais travailler sur un chantier. Okay, spinning time. So same again as before. I would like you to pause the PowerPoint every time a picture spins and call out those wonderful je voudrais travailler sentences. They're actually getting on for a level 5, those sentences, because you're giving a future idea. You're talking in one extra time frame. So it's really, really good if you can learn that sentence starter. Okay, off we go. So I'm hoping you are all calling out je voudrais travailler dans un magasin and the rest. Okay, well hopefully now that lovely level 5 sentence starter je voudrais travailler has well and truly sunk in. We're going to revise it a little bit further, but the end of this lesson is all about adding detail. It's great if you can say where you work using je travaille. It's even better if you can talk about a third person using he or she, saying il travaille or elle travaille. It's even better if you can talk in a different time frame, like the one we've just been practicing, saying I would like to work using je voudrais travailler. But it's fantastic, no matter what your sentence starter is, if you can add any extra detail at all. So for example, we probably know from looking at the first picture here that we would like to work in an office. So we'd say je voudrais travailler dans un bureau. So I wonder what this picture is all about. Let's have a look. Je voudrais travailler dans un bureau. Oh, the extra bit of detail we could possibly add here is avec les ordinateurs. I would like to work in an office with computers. And that's what the remaining 3 slides in this activity are all about. So I would like you to pause the PowerPoint and try and put together, you can do this verbally or even better if you write it down because you'll be collecting some excellent notes. And I'd like you to try and construct a level 5, I would like to work sentence, where you'd like to work, and try and add who or what with at the end. Can you remember what was that little linking word for with? Here it is, just on this slide, mind you, just to help you out. Off you go. And here's your answer. A lovely sentence, an extended je voudrais sentence is je voudrais travailler dans un hôpital avec les malades. I would like to work in a hospital with sick people. Can you try this one, number 3? And your answer could be, it's probably the most straightforward of the 4 on this PowerPoint actually. Je voudrais travailler dans une école avec les enfants. I would like to work in a school with children. And the 4th and final example. Pause the PowerPoint, try and construct a sentence. And your answer is? Bit harder this one. Je voudrais travailler dans un supermarché avec les gens. And I'm just wondering if anybody put avec les gens. If so, well done. It's a nice general word and it means people. So a few memory techniques for the word les gens. Les gens in French means people. There's a few little memory hints I always share with my classes. The first one is lots of people. You might want to think of the general public. Another way of addressing maybe a big crowd of people is ladies and gentlemen. Or if you want to think biology, you could think of this little word here, which of course is linked to humans, people, which is genes and genetics. Okay, right then, that's the end of the lesson, Year 7. I hope that you feel a lot more confident to say where you work using je travaille, or even somebody else using il ou elle travaille, or saying where you want or where you'd like to work in the future using je voudrais travailler. There's just one final thing. If you've got somebody who has got a spare 5 minutes to have a little game of noughts and crosses with you using some of the vocabulary and sentence starters from today's lesson, then there you have it. There's a noughts and crosses grid for you should you wish to have a game. Bonne chance!